After we've tallied up the votes, we'll ask those to put their hands down, and then we'll ask for all opposed, and then we'll ask them to put their hands down, and then we'll ask for those who abstain, and then we'll ask those to put their hands down. If you don't raise your hand at any point throughout the voting procedure for that vote, it will be counted as abstain. Only raising your hand if you're a voting member. So voting members of the WCA, if you're a full delegates, committee team leaders, committee team senior members, senior delegates, board of directors, and that is all. Those of you who are representing someone else at this meeting by proxy, if you wish to split the votes that you have, you received an email earlier the votes that you this week about how many votes you have and who you're representing. If you wish to split them, send a message to me either via Zoom, Slack, or Facebook. I can respond to any of them about how you'd like them split. Is probably the easiest way to do that. So all the votes in this meeting need a simple majority of approval, so at least 50%, so greater than 50%, sorry, and the bylaws vote will have a super majority, so at least 2/3 approval. Unless there's any questions, I will hand over to Bob, who will run the meeting.
All right, welcome and thank you for joining. We'll start with the vote for approval of the minutes of the previous annual meeting. So let's start with those in favor to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Please raise your hands. I still see some hands going up, so I'll give it a little bit more time. Ethan, let me know when you've counted.
Yep, 68 in favour.
All right, thank you. Put your hands down. Once the hands are down, I'll ask for those who oppose. All right, those opposed to the minutes of the previous meeting, please raise your hands. I don't see any hands. Ethan, are there any?
No, 0 opposed.
Okay. And then those who abstain?
I count 7 based on the people who did not vote yes or no.
Okay, great. That should be enough to pass, right? That we have a majority there.
The minutes of the 2019 annual meeting are
Okay, great. So I'm going to give a brief statement. So this has been a difficult year for all of us, and the pandemic will have long-term effects on the WCA. Because of the nature of our competitions, it was necessary to develop a policy to help promote safety. We appreciate everybody's patience as we slowly allow competitions to be held in areas where it is safe to do so. Without competitions, we've had very limited financial income, and some of our staff members are losing their connection with the speed cubing community while they wait for competitions to be safe to hold again in their countries. However, there are still dozens of people who are doing work behind the scenes every day, and we are expecting to have a great World Championship in 2021 and Continental Championships in 2022. So we do hope that things will shift back to normal soon. The next item on our agenda is the financial report for 2019. Is James going to present that?
Yep, I'm ready to do that.
James.
So for the staff on the meeting, you can pull up the physical financial report in the thing linked by the board before. But I know a lot of people aren't into accounting, don't know much about it. So as I run through stuff, I'll give a very brief description of what it actually is because it might be confusing or whatever. So revenue almost doubled from 2018 to 2019 from $23,000 to $43,000. This is mostly due to the fact that in 2018, that was when the dues started in April. And then through 2019, we actually increased the dues for the higher banded countries. So in 2018, we took in dues from around 800 competitions. And in 2019, we took in dues from over 1,300 competitions, and the average competition size was also larger. The admin and operating costs as a result doubled as well. Furtherance costs were started right at the end of 2018. So furtherance is to do with funding for delegates to travel to countries that don't have a delegate in poor areas of the world and stuff like that. So for example, we had competitions in Madagascar, Nigeria, Egypt, all fully funded by the WCA. And then there is also WCA gear team income shown here. And this is netted off with gear team expenses that come later. So I'll just go over that later. So the balance sheet, is mostly like how valuable we are as an association. So this obviously increased as we only really started keeping finances in 2018. So we had 13,000 in cash, and we had receivables, which are people expecting to pay us money, of 4,000. In 2019, our cash has gone up to nearly 26,000, and the receivables are lower at 2,300, which is a better position for us. We obviously want to have as few organizations and people owe us money as possible. And also the board have done a lot of work with the legal teams across many countries to bring in trademarks. So we have assets of 8,400 in trademarks, and that is set to increase quite a lot going into 2020 as well from the work that's happened so far. And then we don't currently own any other assets. 2018, we didn't have any accounts payable, which is money we owed anyone. This year we had 1,000. So this is just a legal expense that happened right at the end of the year that was paid early in 2020. So that's all that there is for that in terms of the liabilities. But the value of our organization has effectively doubled from 2018 going into 2019. So yeah, in terms of donations, in 2018, the majority of that 3,200 was excess profit from Euros 2018, which they kindly donated all to the WCA. And so in 2019, all of the donations were from individuals and also using smile.amazon.co.uk or .com or whatever country you're from. So if you use smile.amazon.com, you can actually set the WCA as the association that receives a little bit of profit, which is really good. And I'd encourage all of you to tell your friends to set WCA when you buy off Amazon. Operating costs, so legal expenses started really at the end of 2019 and have increased a lot going into 2020. However, we can capitalize most of it because our trademark for the World QB Association brand is capitalized. So that is actually adds value to us rather than just an expense. But we do have some expenses for obviously labor and stuff like that. Subscriptions are going to be fairly similar year to year. This is mostly things like the mailbox forwarding and Xero, which is the accountancy software we use. And this year we've had to start buying insurance, which is just going to be a standard cost year on year as well. Bank and finance charges will be whenever we pay money or have like exchange rate stuff. By the pure fact of owning a bank, we have to, whenever we pay a company some money, we'll often have small charges, and these add up quite a lot, especially with PayPal fees from Jews. That's where a huge majority of that comes from. So the furtherance expenses are to further us basically as a brand and to spread the World QB Association further worldwide. So website costs, they actually went down from 2018 to 2019. This was because the software team removed a server whilst we also upgraded our main one, but also we found that we can, as a non-profit, get a credit for hosting on Amazon Web Services. So instead of paying X amount, a few hundred per month, we can pay 2,000 a year, and this will give us a significant saving. So, but this is expected to go up as we need larger servers, and especially with like the addition of WCA Live, for example, it's a whole new section to our website that we have to pay for. So this is probably expected to go up going forward. And the travel reimbursement was for, as I mentioned a bit earlier, sending delegates to countries nearby that don't have any delegates or anyone nearby that can afford to travel themselves. So we had the competition in Nigeria, competition in Egypt, and the competition in Madagascar. Obviously this year we haven't had any travel funding at all because of the pandemic. So going into 2020, that will go back down to zero, unfortunately. And the equipment funding, likewise, is for, again, poorer countries that cannot afford to bring in the equipment that they need for competitions. So smaller countries that do have a community and do have competitions, SpeedStacks displays are generally quite expensive. So as a result, we offer to buy the displays and timers that those places need and send them out, and then we pay for all the customs charges and stuff so that these smaller communities can have bigger competitions without having to worry about paying for dues and having to save all this money to buy timers. And then championship booths, we had the booth at WCA World Championship 2019 in Melbourne, which I think was a great success. I think everyone was very happy with how that turned out and all the work the communications team did setting that up and making sure everyone got plenty of info, people passing by got an insight as to what happened as well. Oh yeah, Philippe just mentioned for 2000, we get a $2,000 credit for Amazon Web Services for like $100. So yeah, it's a pretty huge credit for a very insignificant cost. So yeah, that's pretty good. And then lastly, the WCA gear team stuff. So the way that, for those that haven't ordered equipment or anything like that, the way the gear team works is, say somebody wants to buy 10 displays and 10 timers, they'll message the gear team and say, we want 10 displays and 10 timers. They fill out a form. The gear team then go to SpeedStacks. SpeedStacks make the order. Our information is with SpeedStacks, so SpeedStacks can immediately charge us the money. So that's why we have this purchase value of nearly 11,000, but only recharge of 2,600. And then what happens is, once we have all the shipping costs of getting these stuff from the gear team members to the people who ordered, we then receive the shipping invoice, so we know all of the charges. The finance committee then sends an invoice out to the person who ordered, and then they pay in a reasonably timely manner. And with that started right at the end of 2019, the latest system that we've started using. And so a lot of people ended up ordering a lot of gear towards the end of 2019, and they weren't invoiced until the start of 2020. So going into 2020, we'll have a much higher recharge than the purchase cost was. So this is just a timing difference here in terms of why we lost, quote unquote, lost $10,000 for gear team stuff. That will be shown in 2020 accounts that we will have received. And yeah, that's pretty much it as far as finances go. And thanks to Ed for putting together most of this stuff. And yeah, that's always available, and you can always send WFC questions if you have anything you want to ask about it.
Before we vote to accept that financial report, if anybody has any questions, now would be the time to ask them. I don't see any questions in the chat, and I don't hear any. So let's move to vote to accept the financial report for 2019. If you accept that report, please raise your hand if you are in favor. Ethan, just let me know when you've counted.
Yep, I count 75 in favour, which is everyone in attendance.
Thank you. All right, everybody can raise their hands. Lower your hands, I'm sorry. You said that was everybody in attendance? All right, those opposed, please raise your hands. I don't see any hands raised. Those who are abstaining, please raise your hands. Again, I see no hands raised.
Yep, so that passes. 75 votes yes, 0 no and 0 abstain, 100% approval.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the adoption of the new set of WCA bylaws. Are there any questions before we vote to accept the new bylaws? Okay, those in favor of the new bylaws, please raise your hand. Ethan, let me know when you've counted.
I count 73 in favour.
Okay, thank you. You can lower your hands. Those opposed, please raise your hands. I do not see any hands raised. Those who abstain?
I have two from who haven't voted before. So that leaves 73 yes, 0 no, 2 abstain. Approval percentage of 97.3.
Okay, great. So the new set of bylaws passes. The next item on the agenda is the date and place of the next meeting. This meeting is held annually in October. So our next meeting will be held in October 2021. Because of the nature of these meetings, it will be held virtually, most likely on Zoom, but we'll see a year from now what platform we'll use. And we will choose the exact date sometime in September of 2021 to make sure it works for as many people as possible. So thank you all for attending the annual members meeting. Those of you who are on staff can stay on for the staff meeting that will follow, but the annual members meeting is now concluded.